Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I feel like it's been a hot minute since I've been on here. It's actually, we only missed a week. And I did a replay of one of the more watched episodes. But I want you to know that I would only ever miss a week if there's severe technical issues or if I'm sick and don't want to be on here croaking like a frog at you. And that's essentially what happened last week was that some of you may remember that I went to my first residency for grad school. And what happens is what often happens when you put groups of people together is stuff starts getting passed around. And I came back with the crud. So this seemed like a timely topic since school is getting started this week in my area. And if it hasn't already started in your area, is probably going to be soon. School is back in session. That means the crud is back in session. Even though there was already some stuff going around, to begin with. So, if you don't know me, my name is Donna. If you're just stumbling on my page, I am a mom, a nana, a girlfriend. I am a wellness advocate. I am studying for my Master of Science in Clinical Mental Health Counseling, jazzercise, line dancing nut. I love to run, just waiting for a little bit of a cool front, so that I can get back out there. And I just started Wellness Wednesday because I know that I understand peer support and I know that it's really important to share the things that work for us with others because we never know what we might learn. So after a lifelong battle with anxiety and depression, here I am, and looking forward to sharing my experiences with you and learning from you as well. So if you're here, let me know you're here. And if you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments. Feel free to share. Facebook doesn't always show me all the things. So if you say something and I don't respond, then it's just because I didn't see it and I will after the fact. So once again, school is back in session, at least where I live, and it's coming soon to a school near you. And that means the crud is back in session too. I myself am recovering it. The crud was going around in several forms already, but with school starting, the increased exposure is real. And this is what happens when we start putting people in rooms together, especially kids, because a lot of times kids carry things and sometimes they're asymptomatic. So common things that are going around right now or that have an uptick when school starts are things like COVID and the flu and the common cold and RSV, and the stomach flu, which is a little bit different animal from the flu, and strep throat and other things like that. Of course, there's some other annoying things that see an uptick also when school starts, like head lice, things like that. But really what we're talking about today is this crud, which I'm recovering from because I brought it home from residency with me. And it's just really important. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, you may already know, and there may be a few things here that you never thought about, but we're just going to talk about a few ways, some of my silver bullets, what I do when I have the crud, and some immune boosting, and of course, when to seek medical attention, just to help make sure you're armed appropriately for this immune or lack thereof season. So basically what happened, like I said, we got in a classroom, those of us that usually only see each other online, and things started getting passed around. This was a miniature example of what happens when school gets back in session. A lot of times kids are home for the summer or they're doing other things and they're not exposed to the same germs that they are during the school year. So once school is back in session, everybody's sharing germs with each other and all the new stuff comes home. And I didn't really understand this concept or the concept of how protected I could sometimes be until my grandson lived with me for a little while and then started daycare. And because of just the way my lifestyle was at the time, I wasn't exposed to a lot. I was exposed to a limited number of people that came in my office. And other than that, I was at home. I had been in school at that point I had just finished up my bachelor's. So I had spent, up until that point, I had spent a lot of time at home and just wasn't out and about and exposed to a lot. So what ended up happening was, even if he didn't get sick with whatever he was exposed to at daycare, he was bringing it home and I was catching it. And that was when I really, truly started to understand that no matter how good my immune system was, I was getting, the simple fact was that I was getting more exposure to other things. And so my body was responding accordingly. And when I was getting more exposure to those things on a regular basis, I was better able to fight them off. But when it was new exposure all the time, it became a little bit more difficult until my immune system started learning to respond. So it is just a thing that happens. And unfortunately, no matter how much we try, while there are ways to help kind of prevent it, slow it down, make it less, we can't always avoid getting sick. And sometimes the more we kind of disappear and hide, sometimes the more we may actually make our immune system open to exposure when we are finally exposed to things. So immune boosting, we're going to start there because, like I said, even though we can't always prevent it, and I will never, ever offer any of my silver bullets as prevention. What we can do is we can do things to strengthen our immune system and do things to keep us from getting it or getting it as badly, or put ourselves in a physical position where we can recover better. So ways that you can do immune boosting, obviously, are some of the same ways that we do anything else in terms of wellness. There's always an overlap here, and I think that's worth paying attention to. Good morning, Miss Jessica. So when you hear the same things repetitively over and over again in terms of wellness, in terms of sickness, in terms of getting better emotionally, mentally, or taking care of yourself physically, there's a lot of overlap, and there are reasons for that. So like I said, some of this may be things we already know, but a lot of times we need reminders. I need reminders. I have a pile over here of props to show you for some of my silver bullets, but honestly, some of those things I frequently don't think of until a few days in, and I'm like, why didn't I start doing this in the beginning? So even I need those reminders, even if it's stuff that I know works for me. So let's talk about immune boosting. An apple a day. How many times have you heard the phrase, an apple a day keeps the doctor away? Well, that's not necessarily true in a literal sense. However, it does speak to healthier eating and how much better our immune system can do and how much less frequently we can visit the doctor when we are taking care of our diet. And the apple a day to me symbolizes eating more. There's like a little tiny fly in here and it's making me crazy. An apple a day to me symbolizes that need to make sure that we're eating a clean, whole foods diet that has as little unprocessed foods as possible. I know prices are up right now on everything. And I know sometimes it seems more like, it has always seemed like the healthier foods, the healthier choices are more expensive. But that's a whole conversation that we could have. That's a whole conversation we could have on another day on how to make those healthy food dollars stretch a little bit more. But the more whole foods we eat, the less processed foods we eat, fresh fruits and vegetables especially. I recently saw a post about how there was breaking news that that they are now acknowledging that 5 cups of fresh vegetables a day is the way to go. And I'm like, well, some of us have known this for a while, just through trial and error. I know I'm one of those people. So the more vegetables and fruit that you consume during the day, the more fiber, the more natural vitamins, all of those things that you're consuming. Now, there are limitations to everything. Fruit still has sugar in it. It is naturally occurring sugar. And there's a lot of different schools of thought on that, but I truly believe that if you pay attention to what you're doing, that sugar does not affect the body in the same way as the processed added sugars. So the food plan that I go by or that I try to stick to rather, it basically includes 4 to 5 servings of vegetables and 2 to 3 servings of fruit per day. Now, if you think about the fiber content and everything that's involved there, there's a lot of room for feeling full, and not a lot of room for other crappy type foods. I think I got that little fly. For other crappy type foods that I might be inclined to eat. So that's how I perceive an apple a day as far as immune boosting. Like I said, literally speaking, an apple a day is not necessarily going to keep the doctor away. But figuratively speaking, making sure that you're getting plenty of fresh, unprocessed foods, and getting creative in the way you do that is super important for your immune system. It helps boost your immune system. It helps boost your mood. It just makes everything operate a little bit better. I can tell you that when I'm sticking as close as possible to the food plan that I know and love, then my diet consists primarily of lean protein, vegetables, fruits, healthy fats, and a limited number of the right kind of carbs. And when I'm on that plan, my body operates to a potential that I didn't really know it was capable of. And I'm also less likely to catch things when I'm exposed to them, and I'm less likely to be knocked down by them when I do catch them. So sleep is super important. We know this, we're told this, but we still deprive ourselves of it on the daily. That could be part of the reason why when we are sick, that all our body wants to do is sleep. It maybe recognizes it as one of our opportunities to get that sleep in. But if you are sleep deprived, if you are struggling to get sleep on a regular basis, if you are definitely, your immune system is compromised and you are more inclined to be prone to catch the things that you are exposed to. So sleep is super important. Again, that's something that could be a whole conversation for another day. But trying to figure out how much sleep you need. I actually talked about this not long ago about there are ways that you can do that if you're on vacation or whatever, going to bed when you feel tired and getting up when you wake up, and averaging that time out over a few days will give you an idea of how much sleep your body needs per night. I saw recently that there's now an app where you can figure out your ideal bedtime and your ideal amount of sleep. Not sure I buy into that. But for me, it's about 7 to 8 hours a night. And I thrive. And if I get more than that, I feel it. I drag. I don't move as quickly. My brain doesn't move as quickly. So sometimes too much sleep affects me as much as not enough. But if you are sleep deprived, if you are struggling to get any kind of proper amount of sleep, it is going to compromise your immune system. So it's super important for immune boosting and just general well-being. Sleep deprivation can lead to all kinds of things, including mental and emotional stuff. So sleep is a super important part of this equation. Hydration, of course. Hydration is super important, not just as a preventative, or as a proactive. I prefer the word proactive because none of this will necessarily prevent you from getting sick, but it can be proactive ways to reduce your likelihood of getting sick or of, like I said, staying in it as long. Hydration is super important. It's important for all the things. It's important for the skin, the muscles, the hair, your fatigue, how your brain works. Dehydration can cause brain fog. It can be not drinking enough, not being hydrated enough can be responsible for your body retaining excess water, and being therefore extra round. It can be responsible for muscle aches. There's so much. Water is so important, and it's such an important part of us. So hydration, again, is a major part of the equation. Proper hygiene. We all know this by now, especially with what went down a few years ago with the pandemic. If nothing else, hopefully we learned how to wash our hands better and take care of our bodies better. And these are things that we can pass on to our kids too, if they're the ones that are bringing the germs home because school has started. Just certain things like washing our hands for long enough and the right way. Using hand sanitizer, but maybe not overuse because that can lead to its own set of problems. And a new thing I learned, which you probably already know, if you've dealt with kids at all, you're already familiar with this. But when I was at residency, a couple of my classmates were actually teachers or people who worked with kids on the regular. And my favorite new thing is shark fin. Shark fin is how it's recommended. So you see people recommend sneezing, coughing, whatever into your elbow, not into your hands, like I just did a couple minutes ago. And that's what the name, so we were all walking around in the classroom and afterwards going, shark fin. I just thought it was kind of funny. When my daughter was growing up, we did this thing called land shark. So it's just a funny way to make it stick, not just for kids, but for adults, you know, for those of us that are just overgrown children, basically anyway. But that's something that we can do. I know that if I have to sneeze or cough, I usually, if, you know, like listen, this started when I was at residency. This started as what felt like allergies. And that's usually how it starts with me. It starts out feeling like allergies and then sometimes turns into a sinus infection. But I would grab my jacket if I felt like I needed to sneeze, and I would sneeze into the inside of my jacket. So similar to shark fin. Yeah, I'm having way too much fun with that. But I would sneeze into my jacket. It's going into clothes that parts of my clothing that nobody's going to touch, not on my hands, etc., etc. So proper hygiene is super important, not sharing personal items, because we can pass things around on surfaces. All that kind of, obviously we're not sharing napkins or handkerchiefs and of course, you know, for the non-respiratory stuff, we're not sharing hairbrushes. We're teaching our children not to share those things because other things can come with that. So proper hygiene is a very important part of the equation. I know that I probably wash my hands more when I'm out in public than I do when I'm at home. And that's because I guess I just trust the germs at home, but maybe that's not the right way to be. If I actually had a child in the home on a regular basis, maybe that would actually set me up for failure if I was washing my hands more in public than I am at home. Physical activity. Y'all, I can't stress this enough. Everywhere I look, like literally, I noticed as I was starting to feel better and trying to work out a little bit, do a little bit of line dancing at home, do some yoga. When I work out, my sinuses clear. And there's actually some science behind it. And I had looked it up. And I forgot to look it up again this morning so that I could actually read it to you verbatim. So I'm not going to have the verbiage right. But exercise gets your blood flowing. It gets oxygen flowing. It opens up airways. There is absolutely, good morning, Miss Carla, no question at all that when I can get some sort of physical activity in while I'm not feeling well, this is still morning stuff. The morning stuff is still real right now. It's not totally cleared out. That I feel better all the way around. I feel better physically. I feel better mentally. My sinuses open up. Things start moving so that I can move them out, if you get my drift. So physical activity is super important here. And we'll touch on that in just another minute, There are supplements that are an option, but remember they are supplements, and there's different schools of thoughts on all of these. Some of the more popular ones right now, and some of the ones I use are vitamin C, oil of oregano, elderberry syrup, raw honey. There's a lot of great things that these different supplements can do, but they are supplements. They are not a replacement for the other things that I talked about. They are not a replacement for eating a good, clean, healthy diet and getting more fruits and vegetables into your life. They are not a replacement for getting the proper amount of sleep, water, any of that stuff. They are supplements. They're designed, or they were intended originally to fill the holes in your diet, not replace the things you should be eating. And that's super important. It's something I had to learn over time too, because I was like, oh, I can eat like crap. I can eat one meal a day, but I can take this supplement and I don't get sick and I feel better all the time and I have more energy. No, I mean, it worked for a while when I was younger, but sooner or later it came back and bit me in the butt. So they are supplements, and they are called that for a reason, because they are meant to supplement a generally healthy lifestyle, and to fill in holes, not to replace those things. So, and then stress management. I have a friend who I did not come in contact with at all surrounding my crud, who I spoke to yesterday on the phone, and has her own crud. And I feel really bad for her because she sounds terrible. But one of the things we talked about was the fact that she had been under so much stress for the last week. Just lots of things happening, seemed like everything happened at once, and then wham, she got the smackdown. And so stress is a super important part of that. And what happens when you're stressed? When you're stressed, you're either eating too much of the wrong things or not eating enough of anything. If you're stressed and you're super busy, you're not getting the hydration. You're probably not getting the right amount of sleep, especially if the stress you're experiencing is keeping you up. So all of these things tie together and make you that much more susceptible when you are exposed. Most of the time, you could put two people together who have been exposed to the same germs, and the one that's been hit the hardest is more than likely the one that's had less sleep, that's not been eating properly, that's been stressed off the rails. If there's a difference in the way the two of them get it, then more than likely that's what's behind it, or they have some underlying reason why they are more prone or more susceptible. So stress management is also a very important part of this equation. And I know that seems like a lot, but some of this stuff at this point in our lives should be second nature, right? Like making sure we're getting enough water should be, but it's often not. Excuse me. I forgot to do shark fin, but like I said, at this point, I'm not contagious anymore. This is just stuff still moving through my system. So I apologize. All right, so let's talk about my silver bullets real quick. The things that really, really work for me, whether I'm in a preventative state or whether I am in a recovery state or smack in the throes of it. Liquids. Okay, we just talked about hydration. When you are having the crud, especially stuff that's going on with your head, sinuses, blockage, etc., liquids, especially hot ones, help to open all that up. They're making sure you're getting that hydration. It keeps the mucus thin, keeps it so that things are moving and not getting stuck and breeding infection. And the hot liquids especially help. I know it's Florida. I know it's warm. Good morning, Miss Carla, if I didn't say hi already. This helps us to get our hydration and also to open up sinuses, etc. Another thing a lot of people don't realize is that for me, if on the rare occasion where I've had issues with food poisoning or stomach upset, a very wise woman taught me years ago that the tannic acid in tea can really help settle your stomach down. So my go-to when I'm having an upset stomach is some form of black tea, usually with cinnamon in it or with mint in it, to help settle my stomach. And actually my silver bullet for recovering from any kind of food poisoning starts with tea, because water tends to make my stomach more upset, which is actually a thing. And I never knew that until I was an adult. But the tannic acid in the tea, especially the black tea, something with ginger or cinnamon or mint in it to help settle your stomach. Those are my go-tos for recovery. When I can't keep anything else down, I start with tea, hot or cold. And I start sipping the tea, and it usually helps settle my stomach faster so that I can return to being able to eat regularly and keep things down. When I have issues with gas, because my body doesn't expel gas well, it tends to get trapped here, and then I look like the Michelin Man or the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. A lot of times my silver bullet is a hot chai tea or hot cinnamon tea with raw honey, and a lot of times that takes care of it. If it doesn't take care of it, it settles it down quite a bit. So liquids, yay for liquids. My silver bullets are generally certain types of tea that I drink when I'm having trouble with my stomach. Sometimes I have trouble with my stomach after I've been on over-the-counter meds for too many days. When I came home and I could tell I was getting sick, I started hitting the Sudafed and the Mucinex, and so after a few days, my stomach starts to retaliate against too much over-the-counter meds, and then I have to hit those teas. Chicken soup, does it really make you feel better? Yes, and it could be for any number of reasons, depending on the type of chicken soup you're eating. Number one is the placebo effect, or it's being known as a comfort food. If you've been told your whole life that chicken soup will make you feel better, and you're sick and you're craving chicken soup, eat the chicken soup. Because if you believe it's going to make you feel better, it probably is. Our brains are very powerful things. Not only that, but a hot liquid, again, we just talked about this, can open up your sinuses. If there's veggies, if it's more of a homemade chicken soup with lots of veggies, I already regaled the benefits of vegetables. And then, of course, chicken also has particular amino acids in it that can actually help your body recover. So there's, again, that's another subject that we could actually do a whole Wellness Wednesday about, is the benefits of chicken soup. But the bottom line is if you believe the chicken soup is going to make you feel better, then eat the chicken soup. Now, I have a tendency to regress to childhood, and I want double noodle Campbell's chicken soup, condensed soup, which maybe isn't the healthiest version I could be eating, but it does still make me feel better. And it's because it gives me I'm sure part of it's because it gives me that nostalgia and makes me feel like mom just made me a can of soup, right? Or a bowl of soup. So definitely chicken soup is a thing. Like I said, whether it's a placebo effect, a comfort food to you, or because you're making homemade chicken soup on the stove that's loaded with veggies and all kinds of stuff, if it makes you feel better or you think it's going to make you feel better, then eat it. Nasal irrigation. This is a big one for me because sometimes even if I don't get to the point of sinus infection, my head can produce tremendous amounts of mucus. I know that's way too much information for you. So my go-to is nasal irrigation because I suffer from allergies. No, this is not an advertisement, not product placement. It's just to give you an example of something I use that you can look for. I use this in the shower because I suffer from allergies different times of the year, and I have to stay on top of that. Once that mucus starts moving in my head, I have to keep an eye on it. I have to make sure it keeps moving, that it doesn't settle into my chest or that it doesn't get stuck up here, because if it doesn't, it starts breeding bacteria. Then next thing you know, I have an infection and I'm way worse off than I started. So this really helps me. This helps to clear things out. It's an in the shower thing. You tip your head to one side, spray some in the nose, tip your head to the other side, spray some in the nose, and then let it kind of stew for a few minutes. And then a lot of times, and I know, gross, too much information, but I'm trying to be real with you, start blowing that stuff out. And I usually get way more to move out than I've ever been able to get while blowing my nose. So this is one of my silver bullets. The next thing, and this is one of those things that I don't reach for when I should. This time I did. I started hitting it as soon as I started feeling the sinus pressure. This is a steam inhaler. You can accomplish the same thing by standing in the hot shower. You can accomplish the same thing. Remember the old school stuff? Mom puts a boiling pot of water on the stove and you hang your head over it with a towel over your head to help keep the steam in. Well, this is the more convenient version. It's a steam inhaler. I use the heck out of it, but this is one of those things I tend to forget to grab for until I'm in a lot worse shape than I need to be, where this would have probably helped. So it has a little, it needs to be cleaned right now because it's been in use. So it has a little bit of a reservoir in there that you can fill with water. Different schools of thought, again, on different things. Some of these you buy will actually come with little pads that you can put in there that are like eucalyptus scented, whatever. I don't mess with that stuff because my system can be very sensitive. I don't want to inhale anything that isn't natural, basically, because of how prone to allergies and things I can be. So what I do is I do water in here and then I do some sea salt so that I'm getting like a saltwater inhalation. And this thing works great. I've still been using it in the mornings, even though I've been feeling a lot better because I have trouble getting this stuff to move out. And I want to keep it moving out. So what I do recommend is there's lots of different types of these. Some of them have metal reservoirs and some of them have plastic. If you are going to be adding anything, and the only thing that I personally add is salt, then you want to make sure you have the plastic sealed reservoir, because otherwise, obviously, you mix salt and metal and water, and what happens? You get rust, and you're going to have to replace yours more often if you do that. So the steam inhaler is an excellent option. I can turn it on, kick it up, get it going, hit it several times a day. I don't have to keep getting in the shower or boil a pot of water to get the impact of the steam. And it's really a great tool for me. And I've loved them since the first time I discovered one. I've even been known to drop them off on people's porches when they aren't feeling good. Ask my daughter and be like, here, use this. Hot compress. This is actually like one that I got from a chiropractor's office that was actually originally designed for my back, but this is one of those that you can put in the freezer. Good morning, Cynthia, or the microwave. When my sinuses are packed, when I have that sinus pressure, I can usually poke the top of my head and find tender spots. And there is nothing that is more soothing for me or that clears my sinuses faster than heating this up. I know, isn't this cute? Isn't this cute? Than heating this up and putting it on my head. Hey, Miss Ann. Now, I blew up my original one. And so I ended up going on Amazon and finding a 4-pack of these different shapes that are fantastic. I can also tell you that if you are like me and you go to a concert event or you go to a theme park and you're a screamer, and you get that hoarse voice or almost no voice the next day because you've worn out your vocal cords, either with screaming at the theme park or the concert or with too much coughing, putting a hot compress right here. Thank you, Carla. Putting a hot compress. Good morning, Miss Ann. Right here on your throat can do wonders for that. That's a little trick I learned several years ago when I got knocked on my butt by the crud for 2 or 3 weeks. But like I said, you can put these in the microwave or in the freezer. So this one stays on top of the fridge because I never know which I'm going to need. But since I have 4 different ones, I keep a couple in the freezer and keep a couple out for the microwave. So hot compresses are a wonderful thing. They feel great on your chest when you're experiencing chest congestion. Like I said, on your throat if you've worn out your vocal cords. And they really help open up my sinuses. When nothing else seems to be working for the sinus pressure, I will put this on my head. And then when it gets too hot up here, I'll move it to my face. And then when it gets too hot there, I'll move it to the back of my neck. And what an amazing difference. So love, love, love my compresses. And then, yeah, I have to look at my notes to keep myself on track here. Diffuser is another great tool. If you like essential oils, I try to run this one in the background, especially when I'm struggling with my head. My favorites are eucalyptus oil, peppermint oil, and something called Thieves. But peppermint oil is really my go-to because that will make me feel a little bit more energetic. When I'm feeling a little sleepy, I can fire up the diffuser, put the peppermint oil in it. If I'm struggling with my sinuses a little bit, it'll help. That and the eucalyptus will help clear my sinuses. And I've had to use it. A lot of times my sinuses will clear up if I'm laying just right with the proper amount of elevation, so I don't need the diffuser at night. But on the occasions where I have needed it at night, that's what I run. And it's been a tremendous help. Just like people talk about putting eucalyptus in your shower. There's lots of ways to do that, but essential oils have become a tool that I'm still not using probably as often as I should, but have been very helpful to me to help keep sinuses clear. Etc. I just need to learn more. That's all. And the more I learn, the more I'm sure I'll use them. Speaking of laying just right, elevation of your head is really super important. And I know I'm running a little bit long today. Maybe not as long as I think, but I did start a little late this morning. Elevating your head is really important. One of the problems I had this time was that it felt like things were draining into my ear. And it's probably because I didn't elevate my head properly right from the beginning to keep that from happening. So I had clogged eustachian tubes, excuse me, for a few days. But proper elevation sometimes means an extra pillow so that you're in more of a sitting up position to make sure everything drains properly. And it really makes a difference. And if you're dealing with children who move and you can't keep them elevated, one of the things we used to do with my daughter when she was struggling with ear infections is we would actually put books in between the mattress and the box spring to actually elevate that whole section of the mattress so that no matter if she, rolled off the pillow, whatever, she was still elevated unless she spun herself all the way around so that she was upside down, which she did once. So those are some of the things that I use, some of my silver bullets. We talked about the shark fin. I can't say enough about movement. Again, like I said, one of the things that I've noticed is that when my neck is out of alignment, it causes sinus issues. And usually when I'm sick because I've been laying weird and I've been coughing and I've been whatever, my neck gets out of alignment. So yoga is usually really helpful there, especially if it's yoga that's focused for the shoulders and neck. Like I said, movement, when I started doing a little bit of line dancing, After 10 days of not being out in the public, I went to jazzercise yesterday because usually I sound like this in the morning and then for the rest of the day I'm fine once everything moves out. Jazzercise really helped. It opened everything up. It was really great to get back to a good, tough workout. So movement's super important, but there's a lot of connections, depending on who you ask, between your neck alignment and your sinuses. So if you do have sinus troubles, you may, if you find you're messing with your neck a lot, or it feels out of alignment, or it feels sore, that's something you may want to look into. The two may be related. But take care of your neck. Take care of your neck and your head, and the way you're moving those things when you are sick. You may be surprised how much it helps. If I have to take meds, I start with a nasal spray over the counter. And I use it after the shower or after I've hit the steam inhaler, so my sinuses are already nice and open, so that it gets, a doctor actually told me that. Don't know why I've never thought of that myself, to make sure that stuff gets as far up there as I can. Antihistamines and decongestants. There is a such thing as a dry sinus infection. I've had one. Not fun. So keep in mind when you're using an over-the-counter medication, what are you using it for? If your head is stuffed up, but you feel like everything's really dry up here and nothing's really coming out, but you have that pressure, and you have postnasal drip, then a decongestant is probably what you want to go for. Whereas if you've got that runny nose and things just won't stop dripping, then the antihistamine, because the antihistamine's got more of a drying effect. Once I learned that, I started doing a lot better with over-the-counter meds. I do try to avoid them when I can. Sometimes it can't be helped. Like I said, for me, once that mucus starts forming and moving, I have to keep an eye on it, and I have to keep it under control, or I end up with a sinus infection. So, like I said, antihistamine, decongestants, how you use them depends on what you have going on. And then Mucinex has been a great tool for me in whatever form, whatever store brand, to help keep that mucus at bay and keep it going. I talked about nasal irrigation a couple minutes ago. There's also other options besides just the saline spray, which is something called a neti pot, and also something else that's similar to a neti pot, but it's got like a power feature, a power suction feature called Navage. And lots of people use those. Lots of people love them. I personally haven't tried them. This is as far as I've gone as in terms of messing with my nose and my sinuses. And this is just a saline spray under pressure so that you can get it where it needs to go. Totally natural. But one thing I do have to tell you is that I did learn, because my mother mentioned the Navage because my brother has one and loves it. So I did a little poking around. I'd heard of it before. I was like, does it really work? You know, I started asking questions. Since I had the clogged ears, I decided it wasn't something I wanted to try this time around, because that power suction can cause a problem if you've got ear pressure or clogged ears or any kind of an ear infection. So that's one thing I do want to note, is while nasal irrigation is great and Navage is sworn by a lot of people, you may want to stay away from anything that includes power suction in your sinuses if you have clogged ears. So those are my silver bullets. There's a lot of supplements that I play with. We do make our own elderberry syrup. I do wholeheartedly believe in that. Raw honey in the right instances. So hopefully all of these things can help you in some way. Maybe even if you just implement one or two. If you're going to implement anything, focus hard on that eating a healthier diet, the more fresh foods and vegetables, getting enough sleep and hydration. Those are probably, and that stress management, those are probably the most important core components of avoiding the crud. And of course, stay home until you're feeling well, and especially until you're not running a fever anymore. Ease back into activity as listen to your body. Good morning, Miss Sue. Listen to your body and don't ease back into activity until it says it's ready. I dance, I line dance. I do that a lot. I practice line dancing at home. I danced for about 45 minutes. I was a little worried because of the clogged ears that I was going to have dizziness when I turned. I didn't want to take, as much as I wanted to go outside and run, I didn't want to take chances on if something went wrong, being too far from the house, or where I couldn't, climb to the couch. So I started here and I started small, and it helped and it made me feel a lot better. I was really tired afterward, so I took a nap. You know what I mean? But you have to listen to your body and ease back into the activity as you can. Don't hide I kind of talked about my grandson when I wasn't exposed to as much stuff. A lot of us tend to want to just, you know what, if I hide, if I stay home and I don't go anywhere, I'm never going to get sick. But that can actually compromise our immune systems too, because then we're not getting exposed to daily run-of-the-mill stuff that could actually make our immune system stronger. Part of our immune system being stronger, unfortunately, is being exposed to germs. So hiding is not the answer unless you're not feeling well. If you're not feeling well and you have a fever, then by all means hide. Fever is defined as 100.6 or over. My fever was very low grade. It never got higher than 99.5. It was for about 24 to 48 hours. I would say 48. And I don't even need a thermometer to know if I'm running a fever. Pure Mist is a great option too, Miss Carla, yes. Because my skin starts getting really cranky and really irritated if I'm running a low-grade fever. So I knew before I ever saw a thermometer that I was probably in trouble, because my skin was starting to get really cranky and really irritated. And I was like, uh-oh, Houston, we have a problem. Good morning, Danielle. 2 degrees if you're an older adult. Okay, first of all, a low-grade fever is considered 99.1 to 100.4. It depends on the doctor you're talking to. 2 degrees higher than normal for older adults is considered a fever. And older adults are sometimes treated a little differently when it comes to fevers. If you have anything lower than 100.4, you don't necessarily have to treat it. A lot of times the recommendation is not bother with the over-the-counter meds, let it run its course. Anything 100.6 or over is considered a fever and therefore may require treatment. And the only reason I treated my fever at 99.5 is because it makes my skin hurt. So the ibuprofen helps a little bit with that, but I get off of that as soon as I can because it also messes with my stomach. So keep that in mind. If you're running a very low-grade fever, it doesn't mean you're not sick. It just means you may not need to go to the doctor if you're running below 100.6. And you may just need to kind of let it run its course and keep an eye on it, especially if it's responding to over-the-counter meds. If you have severe symptoms or the following symptoms last longer than 10 days or keep coming back, such as fever, nasal discharge, congestion, or facial pain, and that compress really helps with facial pain. I don't always go to the doctor when I have facial pain because it depends on how it responds to the hot compress and the steam inhaler going off. That's when you go ahead and make an appointment with your doctor. If your symptoms are getting worse instead of better, if they are severe, if they last longer than 10 days. Otherwise, that is the time to hide at home. Make sure you rest, get your liquids, get all the things. So, wow, I ran a little bit long today, and I'm really sorry. There was a lot to cover here, lots of information. If you want to know more about the things that I do, where I get the things that I do, or talk more about supplements, shoot me a message, drop a comment. I'll send you a message. If you found this helpful, please share. Don't forget shark fin. And if you're just coming in at the end, go back to the beginning and watch. This one was a little long today, but in my defense, I wasn't here last week. I had a lot to say. And most importantly, I hope you found this helpful. Do the things, do the immune boosting things. If you implement nothing else, make sure you're getting plenty of hydration, the right kinds of foods, and try to make sure you're getting enough sleep and managing that stress so that you can make sure that your body is better equipped to handle when you are exposed to something and when you do get the smackdown from the crud. Maybe it's not as much of a smackdown that way. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please share. Feel free to message me if you want more information about any of this stuff. And I hope you all have a fabulous week. I will see you next Wednesday. And most importantly, between now and then, be well. Bye.